Hey, y'all! Welcome to the first ever podcast live stream in the Astrology membership. Super excited about this. And welcome to the recording if you're not live with us. If you're live, there is a chat section so you can ask questions, share what's coming up for you with these transits, personally based on your chart, or anything else you want to add. So, hey, May. Super excited about this. And yeah, the recording will be posted in the membership as well as on the podcast. So yeah, I'm super excited to go over just really like the rest of the year. I was doing a little bit of research. This is probably my Manny Gen self, but I love to do things last minute. So I was literally looking all of this up like 30 minutes before I hopped on here. Very manifesting generator of me. But yeah, it's just there's a lot going on, and there's a lot that is probably going to happen before the year ends. Just because of how the cookie is crumbling, just of where everything is falling and the divine orchestration of the timing of it all. A lot of revisitation. So just an overview. It seems like there's a lot of revisitation from themes that we were dealing with back in August when we had I believe we had a T-square between Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn, and mutable signs. So there's a lot going on with mutable signs because of the Mercury retrograde and because Jupiter is still in Gemini and Saturn is still in Pisces, and they're getting closer and closer to being to squaring each other again because Jupiter is still retrograde. And then we have the Mercury retrograde in a mutable sign. I think we even had, I know the last Mercury retrograde we had was both in Gemini and Leo. So I honestly can't remember from memory if it touched Jupiter and Saturn when it was in Virgo retrograde. But either way, there are going to be themes brought up again from what was going on for us in August. Obviously, it will be a different way because this isn't Virgo energy now. This is Sagittarius energy. So the release of the T-square that will be occurring is going to happen through Virgo. So it's going to be a revisitation of those themes, but just in a different way. Combined with the Mars retrograde as well, there's just a lot that we're not meant to have clarity around. We're not meant to be fully acting on yet. We're not meant to fully be sharing with the world yet or have the answers to the clarity around that maybe we want to, right? I feel like Mars and Leo, especially it being opposite Pluto, we've wanted this clarity. We've wanted to act on these things. We've wanted like the transformation to happen now. But all of these, well, more specifically, the Mercury and the Mars retrograde are just kind of slowing us down so that we reassess, so that we have time to reflect on how to move forward on these things in a way that's really going to be ultimately in alignment and in the right timing for us to act on them. So that's kind of an overview of what I saw when I was looking ahead at everything. And yeah, really, I'm going to go over until the end of the year. And so let's just dive into let's start at the beginning, the dates of the Mercury retrograde. So I've talked about this before on a couple of videos on socials, but Mercury pre-shadow started on November 7th. I believe that was the day after the election in the US. So that's when it's kind of hard to explain. I'll give you guys a visual because this always helps me. I know some of y'all are visual learners as well. So this little graph, I've shared this in a few live Q&As in the membership because it's just so helpful to have this. Like you can see this green arrow here is where the Mercury retrograde pre-shadow started. And what that is the exact place that Mercury is, like the degrees down to the minutes where Mercury is after the retrograde. So Mercury moves to 22 degrees of Sagittarius. That's what this graph like represents, right? It'll move almost to 23 degrees Sag, and then it goes retrograde and it moves back through all of those degrees. and then it will go direct. It will leave retrograde when it's back at that same place that it was when the pre-shadow started. So this little green circle kind of explains that as well, although I think it helps, but it's still kind of like, how do I read that? So hopefully that makes sense. This is Mercury's trajectory of retrograde. It starts at 6 degrees. Well, it'll end at 6 degrees. And it'll be moving from 22 degrees back to 6 degrees. Starts on the 25th, which is today, depending on where you are in the world. Will be in the US, it will start tonight, I believe, at like, because for me it starts at like 3 a.m. So in the US, I think that'll be like 9 p.m. So it'll technically start later today, and then it will be moving backwards retrograde until December 15th, where it will stop. It'll go direct at 6 degrees Sagittarius. So really, this is going to affect anyone that has mutable signs. Like no matter what the degrees is of your mutable signs, because of where this is, like it's going to pretty much affect all mutable signs and placements that you have. And as I've said before, Mercury retrograde is not bad. It's just a reassessment. Like I said earlier, it's us reassessing how we want to act, how we want to make the changes in our lives that we want to. And we've kind of been in since August, like this 6-month cycle of getting clarity on how we want to move forward. And this is going to bring more of that clarity to us. It's going to have us slow down how we're taking action so that we can reassess and we can reevaluate these things in our lives in order to move forward on them with clarity and actually implement those changes in a way that's in alignment for us when Mercury goes direct on December 15th. And then it will be in post shadow. So if you've heard me talk about retrogrades before, I like to call them like the 3 phases. We have the pre-shadow, we have the actual retrograde. That's phase 2. Pre-shadow is phase 1, and then we have post-shadow, which is like phase 3. And that's in phase 3, we really actually like implement the things that we reevaluated and that we reassessed during the retrograde. And then so phase 3 will go from like December 15th when Mercury stations direct all the way until right after the new year on January 2nd. So that is the Mercury retrograde from November 25th until December 15th is when we'll be in that introspective reassessing time period where things may, there may be delays with communication, with things moving forward. There may be, just interruptions with things, or there might be a lot of like introspective time to really reframe things that are going on within your mental state of like, okay, what ideas have I had over the past couple weeks or even months that I've wanted to act on, that I've been sitting with, maybe I have taken some action towards, but haven't fully completely like manifested yet. What are some like changes I want to make to that so I can move forward with those changes? I was going to say something. Oh, someone asked me earlier if you have Mercury retrograde in your chart, if Mercury retrogrades are periods for you, like if it's the opposite. And you should be acting on things during Mercury retrograde if you have it natally in your chart. And that's kind of a tricky question to like give a black and white answer to. I would say that people with, and I don't have personal experience with this either. Mercury is direct in my chart, so I don't have personal experience with it, and I've never, I'm trying to think, I really don't know that many people who have Mercury retrograde natally. So share your experiences and the membership if you have that in your chart and maybe how it's shown up for you, because I don't have like a textbook answer for that. And like I said, it's a little complicated because still Mercury retrograde is the energy of Mercury retrograde. Like it's still going to have that energy of reassessment. And while I think people who natally have Mercury retrograde or any other personal planet retrogrades in their chart can handle these inner planet retrogrades more gracefully and better because they're used to the energy. I don't know that there's like a textbook, like you should do the opposite of what everyone is telling you to do because you have it natally in your chart. I think it also depends on what else is going on in the chart, like where it is for you and what exactly you're wanting to like, sign. People say, don't sign contracts, don't blah, blah, blah during Mercury retrograde. And I think that's really subjective. I think it really depends on, again, your chart and what's going on for you. Um, and there's a whole picture to this. There's not just, I can't give like a textbook, and I don't like to give like a textbook, like yes or no, because it really depends on what's going on with your chart. I have had really great experiences where I've had really like ease of travel. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, it was last year. Last year during there was a Mercury retrograde. I think it was in like wasn't in Capricorn or something. I forget. We had a Mercury retrograde last year, and I traveled um like 3 hours away from where I live in the US. I was in Colorado and I traveled to California for like 10 days. And there were no delays. It was like the smoothest trip I've ever had. I got upgraded to first class. Like it was crazy. It was like everything was so aligned synchronistically. And I could have easily been like, oh my God, well, Mercury's retrograde. I shouldn't do any of this. But what I acted from was not the mind or the analytical of like, oh, I shouldn't do this because Mercury's retrograde. Blah, blah, blah. I acted from my sacral authority. And I think that, again, is what we all need to just remember to come back to when it comes to decisions. Because that is your decision. That is what's guiding you to the right decisions for you and telling you whether or not something is right for you or not. I've had experiences though during Mercury retrogrades, like I can think of one 2.5 years ago, where I signed a lease on an apartment during a Mercury retrograde, and it ended up being a really bad decision. But also, when I think back on that time, I made that decision to sign that lease out of like fear that I wouldn't find a new place if I didn't re-sign the lease. And also the leasing office, the property management company was freaking awful, and they were pressuring me to sign the lease, and like they were having people tour my apartment while I was there, not giving me notice. So like it was just a really bad situation. And so I was just like, fuck this. I'm over like y'all just coming into my apartment, whatever you want. Like, I'm going to resign the lease. So you stop doing that. And so I made that decision like out of fear, and I wasn't listening to my gut. And so that's why I think it ended up being a bad decision, because I didn't listen to my inner authority that was telling me, hey, don't do this. Like, and the fact that it was a Mercury retrograde also can confirm that, but it's not the only thing that was going on, right? So we can't isolate these things like that, is my opinion, my belief. So always act from your excitement, from your gut, what feels good to you. Like I kind of have been a little bit more in the analytical side of things lately with this trip. I'm still in France, and I was deciding whether or not I wanted to extend it another month. And I was like, okay, I definitely don't want to deal, because Mercury is retrograde in Sagittarius and it's in my third house opposite Jupiter and Gemini in my ninth house of international affairs. Sagittarius also rules international affairs. It's like, there's no way that I feel good. Like it just in no shape or form, like no matter what, did not feel good to fly internationally during this Mercury retrograde. So I gave myself like 2 dates before and after the retrograde that I could like possibly go back to the US during this trip. And what ended up feeling the best for me was to extend it until the end of December, until after the retrograde is over. So again, that like came down to what felt good to my gut as well. And I knew obviously what was going on with the transits, and that impacted the decision, but I didn't just rely on one thing for that decision. So anyways, I hope that's helpful and answers any questions that people have about Mercury retrograde natally. Okay, so where do I want to go from here? I also want to say that Mercury retrograde being in Sagittarius this time, because if you didn't know, Mercury kind of shifts the signs, the elements of the signs that it goes retrograde in every year. So this year it's been mostly in fire signs. I believe in 2023 it was mostly in earth signs. I haven't looked ahead at next year yet for what element the Mercury retrogrades will be in. But this one being in Sagittarius specifically, Sagittarius rules our belief systems, and Mercury is uncomfortable in Sagittarius because Mercury rules Gemini, right? And Sagittarius is opposite Gemini. So Mercury is technically like in detriment in Sagittarius. It doesn't like to be in Sagittarius, or it could be called fall. I always get those terms confused, but either way, it's uncomfy in Sagittarius. And so there might be things that come up around like, oh, I shouldn't have maybe acted so spontaneously about on that thing, or I shouldn't have, like, Mercury and Sagittarius can put its foot in its mouth. So this slowdown again is happening for us to like reassess maybe how we've been doing that, or rushing into things, rushing into making decisions, or pressuring ourselves to rush ourselves into making decisions. And that stems from a belief, right? I just spoke to like making decisions out of fear, making decisions out of scarcity, and that's always going to fuck us up like long term. In the moment it's going to feel good because we silence the thing that was like the part of us that was afraid. But ultimately, long term, it's going to create more instability and more chaos in our life than if we make decisions from like what is truly in alignment for us, right? Based on using your human design authority. And so that might also be a big theme of this retrograde, just generally and collectively, is maybe how we like spoke too soon about things, or we, just again, just didn't think before we acted about something. And so this introspective period is showing us like, hey, maybe we should really like reassess and reevaluate how we're doing this thing. And for you individually, this is going to depend on where you have Sagittarius in your chart. For Aries and Libra risings, this is more specifically going to be in like your philosophies of life for Aries, and for Libra, myself, my mindset and my communication. And I've been learning French, so themes around that are coming up for me of like, oh, well, I really like thought I knew more French than I do. And I'm faced with that on a daily basis. Third house of like, yeah, Kelsey, you don't know as much as you thought you did. Like, and now this retrograde is coming to be like, okay, how can we go back into the cocoon and study more, to then to have more knowledge and more wisdom from that time. Does that make sense? What are other themes of Sagittarius? Really, again, just our belief systems, how our belief systems play into the life that we experience on a daily basis. And again, whether or not we're really making decisions that are in alignment for us and doing it from a place of like our own inner knowing, or if we're doing it from fear, from scarcity. I also believe this is a great transition into the Mars retrograde. So Mars retrograde begins on December 6th. We've been in the pre-shadow for almost 2 months. And that it's in and of itself, that's why this is just such a long cycle, the Mars retrograde, because the pre-shadow is 2 months, the retrograde period is going to be 2 months, and then the post-shadow is going to be 2 months. And that's just because Mars is the slowest moving inner planet. It moves signs literally once every 2 months. Whereas everything else, Venus, Mercury, the sun, moves signs every 30 days pretty much. Mars moves more slowly. So that's why the retrograde lasts longer. But again, it's not bad. None of this is bad. It's just a needed period to be introspective and to reflect on these things. If y'all read or got the email of my astrology time update yesterday on Sunday, I talked about this a little bit of like how these things aren't bad. They're needed for us to reassess our actions so that we can move forward in a new way, make the necessary changes and adjustments to how we're doing things, to how we're showing up. It's a part of our growth and our evolutionary process. And so it needs to happen in order for us to just slow down and rethink things, or regroup and reevaluate, and have that period, that ability to be able to do so. What was I going to say? I was going to say that with Mars and Leo opposite Pluto, that we've had for the last couple of weeks, I talked about this transit a lot in, I think it was October. Or no, it must have been all the days, all the months, all the times are blurring together for me. At this point, I've thought it's December all month, and we're still a week away. Maybe early November was when Mars started to be opposite Pluto for the first time. And so, but it was a different energy when it was in Cancer and Capricorn. It was completely different. And now that it's been in Leo and Aquarius, all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, I want to act on these new things. I want to do these new things, right? We're in this great new beginning right now. And so there's so much like energy, there's so much kind of, again, pressure that we maybe put in ourselves to act and to do and to create and to share and to blah, 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 like now's the time, like it's a new beginning, like we should do all the things and we can act on the things now. But it's like we literally don't have the energy for it. We literally don't have the energy for it, and it's because we're not meant to be acting on those things right now. Like come next spring, yes, 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 yes. But right now is more so about like resting and slowing ourselves down to have like really this reflection period. I almost sound like a broken record at this point because I feel like I've said that word so much, but that's really what these retrogrades are helping bring to our life, is a period of slowing down so that we reassess and so that we reevaluate and so that we can really act and move forward on these things in a way that's like really truly in alignment. So yeah, the dates of Mars retrograde, like I said, Mars stations retrograde on the 6th of December. The shadow period began on October 4th. So what's been coming up for you in the area of life? You have Cancer and Leo since October 4th, because that's what's going to be reassessed. For me, it's really like, it's just so funny because the August stuff, when we're like in these transits on a day-to-day basis, it's kind of hard to see the forest for the trees, right? But when we look back, and this is what I always say too, is like I love using astrology for hindsight because it helps give me understanding. And yeah, when we look ahead, we can see general themes, but really the understanding and the like aha moments come when we look back. So back in August, there's all that craziness with Jupiter squaring Saturn and Saturn squaring Virgo, and then we had that full moon amplifying it, right? Or Saturn opposite Venus and Virgo, and they were both squaring Jupiter. And so for me, that was showing up as like I literally like got scammed before I before my like 2 days before my international flight to Paris. And I also had to like move all of my things into storage. And I had no time because of getting everything together to be over here for a few months. I had no time to like work at all. If y'all were in my membership back then, you remember I literally only had like, usually I was doing the Q&As back then at like every week, sometimes twice a week. And I literally, because I was so just crazy busy, all of a sudden out of nowhere, that makes sense because Jupiter in my ninth house, like amplifying themes, expanding themes of wanting to be abroad, squaring Saturn in my sixth house of day-to-day like work and like what I'm doing on a daily basis for work. I was so focused on the international stuff and having that, be just all the things I had to do for that I really didn't have much time to work. And there was conflicts and challenges between that because I love showing up for y'all in the membership. And I was so like, oh my God, I'm like, I don't have the energy, but I want to, right? So that's how it was showing up for me back in August, was like the conflicts and challenges around being able to stay disciplined with what I've built and showing up for y'all versus like my want to expand on this international trip. Does that make sense? And so that was really like a theme for like a month. Really most of September. And then October was when I started to focus more on like, okay, I'm finally like not traveling every 2 to 3 days. Like I have time and space to do live streams again. I have space to like do Q&As again. I have all this space to show up for y'all again in the ways that I've wanted to for the past 2 months, but didn't have the energy or time for. And so that's what was going on for me at the beginning of October. And there have been so many ideas since Mars went into Jupiter, since Mars went into Leo, and it's been opposite Pluto. There's been so many ideas that I'm like, oh, I want to do this next year. I don't want to do this. And like, blah, blah, blah. I want to create this and I want to like actually put my book out there. And like, I've been working on that forever. And like all these things that like started to like, I was like, I want to do this and I want to do that now that there's like space. Right. But this energy is about to go retrograde. And Mars is in my 10th house and my 11th house of like 10th house of career and 11th house of long-term goals and visions. And all of that kind of has been shifting while we've been in this pre-shadow Mars retrograde energy. And so I know that it's all going to get reassessed once Mars goes retrograde, and I'm rethinking these kind of things and how I want to show up, right? And so, like I said, hindsight, looking back on these things gives so much, like, oh my God, that's why that was happening then. And that's like, I knew it at the time, but it was like, you're forced to live it when you're in it, and you can't so clearly see that it's happening. Does that make sense? Um, and so I know that this Mars retrograde is going to have me reevaluating those things, right? And so I know probably that these things are going to come together that I want to act on and that I want to create until Mars goes direct, because that's where that is in my chart. It's in the part of my chart that rules career and sharing things, with the world. And so Mars, I went off on a whole tangent there, but Mars will be retrograde until February 23rd. So like I said, it's a pretty long time. And not to say that, don't take any action, don't do anything during this time. Again, listen to your human design authority. There are some things I know I'm going to act on. Like, there's a lot of things in the works that I know I'm going to act on during the Mars retrograde. And it's not bad to do that. Again, I'm going to listen to my human design authority for like the exact timing and what to actually share with you guys, because there's, like I said, literally Pluto went into Aquarius and I got like 10 ideas that I wanted to do, like courses and things I want to launch. And the ideas were just like a whole day I spent writing all these ideas down. And so I know I'm going to act on some of them during the retrograde, and it's not bad, but I know that I'm going to act on them imperfectly. Like, I've done everything in my freaking life. It's so 1-3 profile of me to like, and very healing for my Chiron and Virgo to act on things imperfectly. And this is another lesson of right now as well. Like I was saying earlier, we have the Gemini, Sag, Pisces energy that's conflicting. The release of that is through Virgo. And what that means is these things that are going to come up around, let me stop sharing so I can go back to the dates I wrote down for everything. So around mid-December, we're going to have these themes come up where it's like, okay, I want to do this thing. I want to act on this thing. I want to share this thing. And the way that we need to kind of, how do I want to say that? Like, the way we need to think of it is it's really going to happen, the majority of it. I was going to say after Mercury goes direct, but that's not true, because we have a big transit that's happening on the 7th of December. So like the first couple weeks of December are going to be a lot of like, what do you want to act on? What do you want to create that maybe, again, has been something you've wanted to do or create or share for 2 months. And now the energy is there to be like, okay, yes, I'm going to share this thing. But the release of the Virgo, the T-square being, how do I say this? I'm just going to show you guys because it's so hard to explain without a visual. Hold on. What I'm getting at basically is don't overthink these things. Like I was saying earlier, don't overthink not doing something that you want to do, that you're excited to do because something is retrograde, right? It's all going to be aligned no matter what. So we're going to look at December 7th, because we have, well, actually, let's go back, because I think we have, oh yeah, let's start at the beginning. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so December 4th, we have Mercury opposite Jupiter, and they're both starting to square Saturn. So this is that energy of what I was speaking to. When we have a T-square in the sky, when there's a planet like Mercury, as an example, for this day on December 4th, opposite Jupiter, and they are both squaring another planet, that's a T-square. And so the planet that they are both squaring, which in this case is Saturn and Pisces, a T-square creates a lot of friction, it creates challenges, it creates conflict between those energies, and between those literal houses in your chart as well. So those areas of your life, there's conflict there. Like I was sharing with y'all what happened to me when this was going on back in August. But the release of this T-square is going to be different than what it was in August because we have Sagittarius at play here and not Virgo. So back in August, Sagittarius was the release of the T-square energy. And this time around, Virgo is the release of the T-square energy. So for me, back in August, the big thing that was helping me like release all the conflicts that were happening between these areas of my life was literally like getting out into the world and going on little adventures. And just also planning my literal international trip, which is very Sagittarius energy. But Virgo brings a different way that this energy is going to release the conflict in our lives that it's causing. Does that make sense? So it's more so about like not letting perfectionism or overthinking get the best of us during this time. And also, what are some ways that you can maybe practice mindfulness? You can like take care of your health during this time as well. I've been hearing from a lot of people that they're experiencing kind of like out of the blue health things. Like I was really sick the last 2 weeks, and almost everyone I've talked to that's like in my circle has also had the same kind of like sickness or cold or whatever. And so again, this is kind of that energy and why this is showing up, because we just had Mercury opposite Jupiter square Saturn like not 2 weeks ago. So the Mercury retrograde is going to bring that back up in a new way of like, okay, are you still taking care of yourself in the ways that whatever health issue came up for you in the way that it did prompted you to look at and to heal, right? So that's also another part of Virgo energy is what can we do? What structures or systems can we put in place to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves through any conflicts that come up, any challenges that come up, and through this time. So the dates, also just to preface, the dates I'm going to cover are like the ones that stood out to me the most. So we have this opposition between Mercury and Jupiter on the 4th. And again, we're going to revisit themes not only from August, but also from the 1st and 2nd weeks of November, because we had this transit then. And then they're both going to square Saturn. So it's going to feel like, again, there's like, we started this new beginning earlier this year. We've been building this dream. I've been talking about it, I feel like almost every week in my astrology time updates of like, we're building this dream. We're building this new beginning. For some of us, this might even be like, we've been doing this for literal years. But it really shifted end of last year, I'll say. And so, like, where was I going with that? It feels like we should have it. It should be there. It should be here. It should be, it should be built by now. Like, why is it taking so long? Kind of energy, right? But it's because there's this crucial timing piece at play. And again, it's having us reassess maybe the ways that we've been acting out of fear, scarcity, instead of like true alignment and wanting to rush ourselves versus honoring the divine process that we're in with all of this kind of stuff, May says you have such a cute laugh. Thank you, May. I've had a sinus infection for over 2 weeks. Damn. No, that's what mine feels like too. I have a friend here in Paris that they diagnosed her with bronchitis and the flu. But it honestly, to me, it feels like I don't really go to doctors. But it feels like a sinus infection that I had back in July. I had one, and it feels like the same thing. And which is funny because it's like I had the same kind of sickness like right before we had this energy, the same energy, similar energy in August, I'll say. And that also prompted me to be like, damn, I need to stop eating out so much. Maybe I should like do some workouts and hike more consistently than I have been, like move my body more. And that's the same kind of themes that are showing up for me here in Paris. As I've gotten sick again, it's like, okay, I need to stop eating out as much and really learn how to be more consistent with taking care of myself. And so again, these things, the journey we're on, the healing that we're doing is not linear. And that's what retrogrades kind of show us as well, is like, okay, we've moved forward on this thing, but retrograde, when it's retrograde, we reassess, right? We move a little backwards. It appears that we're moving backwards, which is funny. I'm using those words because literally that's what a retrograde is. Like, planets never actually move backwards. It's just they look like they are from our perspective here on Earth of them, right? So it's like that is the journey. It's like we appear to be maybe moving backwards, but that also shows us how we need to move forward in a new way. I hope you're feeling better, May, because that, man, it's the worst. I've been going through, up until a few days ago, like a box of tissues a day. That's how much I've been like blowing my nose and coughing stuff up. It's not fun. But I am also grateful for it because it really did force me to rest. I was pushing myself too hard, walking like 8 miles a day, trying to see all the things and do all the things, and then neglecting my like nutrition because of it. So yeah. Again, like I said in my email yesterday, it really does all happen for a reason, even if we don't understand that reason at the time. So then on the 5th, we have we have a Mercury Cazimi. So Mercury will be on the sun, and they will both be squaring Saturn and opposite Jupiter. So that kind of friction, conflict, energy between Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, and the sun is going to last a couple days. The peak days are the 4th and the 5th of December, right before Mars goes retrograde. The December December looks interesting. If y'all have seen my literal 3-hour long 2024 transit update that I did in January of this year for 2024, I distinctly remember like I couldn't get much about these last 3 months of the year. And I still kind of feel that way. Like I can read the energy and I can say this is what we're going to be on a collective level. This is what's going to be happening. But I can't really go more than that. I know also there's going to be these crucial dates where something happens, economically, but that's all that I'm getting. And it's still kind of foggy. It's still kind of cloudy. But December will be a very interesting month for sure. And it's going to start this first week, the 4th through the 6th, when we have this stuff with Mercury, the Sun, Jupiter, Saturn. We'll have the moon on Pluto. It will be opposite Mars on the 5th as well. I think this is actually my next astrology time update. So I'll be going deeper into this week in the update on a day-to-day what's going on. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. May says second set of antibiotics. Oh my gosh. Lungs sound diminished, so inhaler too. Oh my gosh, wow. Yeah, it's been brutal. That sucks. Been a mess. My head has been killing me. I've been taking oil of oregano every day, and that's been helping. But it's still not fun. It's like I feel better right before I go to bed, and then I go to sleep, and when I wake up, I'm like right back to the worst of it. So I feel you. That sucks. Lots of soup is what I've been doing. Lots of soup and sleep. Soup and sleep. Okay, so then we have Mars going retrograde on December 6th. And yeah, it's still kind of opposite Pluto, although the peak won't return. When will that be? Oh, towards the end of December. So what else do we have going on Mars 6th? Pluto conjunct Venus. This is why I was saying that something might happen economically because we have Venus on Pluto on the 6th and the 7th of December, and then we'll have the moon on this day as well on the 6th, and a challenging aspect to Uranus. and Taurus. So there could be something that happens that like triggers a chain of events to happen that like we learn about later in December when this stuff is more is peaking more so than it will be the 1st of December. Also on the 6th, we have Mercury exactly squaring Saturn. So again, going to feel this is just going to feel really like challenging. Like we want to do things that we've wanted to do. Kind of what I've been saying this whole time. Like we've wanted to act on these things that we know are a part of us building this new dream for ourselves or moving in this new direction. But there's just other priorities. There's other things that we kind of feel like are getting in the way of being able to do that. Okay, what was the next important date I have? So then the 7th, like I've talked about, the sun is exactly opposite Jupiter. And then we have Venus on Pluto. That will peak on the 7th. And then the next important date is the 11th. We'll have Mercury starting to be harmonious with Mars. So this whole month really is going to feel like, oh, I want to do this thing. And while we might take incremental steps to it, we might take little like short steps to doing the thing or building the thing, sharing the thing. It just might feel like, oh, there's challenges that I don't know. It's like it's not all coming together yet. No matter what we're doing, it's like we don't have the full picture yet, and it's not working out the way that we want it to yet. I don't know how else to say that. It's like yeah, like an example would be if you're trying to manifest. This is such a random example, but an example would be if you're manifesting like $20,000 or something, and you randomly get a check in the mail, like I don't know, like a refund check or something for like $5,000, and you're like, oh well, this is great, like this is awesome, like this was totally unexpected, this is like towards my goal, but it's not the whole goal. You know what I mean? Like it's like I still have the rest of the goal to hit. That's kind of this energy. Is like something happens, and it's like a little. It's kind of like a sign of land. Have you ever heard that phrase towards like manifestation, where it's like, you're close to it, but it's not fully here yet? That's kind of this energy on the 11th. And then we'll also have Venus opposite Mars on this day. This is going to be really the focus this week of, let's say, like the 9th, 10th of December is going to be like, how can we transform our values or our self-worth or things like that we've been maybe building, working towards. Like, and another example would be if you've been increasing your standards and dating kind of thing, maybe attracting people that like aren't up to par with your new standards and being like, okay, well, how can I make some subtle changes to my dating app profile or whatever it is, how I'm dressing to get approached by different men or whatever the situation is exactly for you. That's kind of this energy of like, okay, I need to kind of change something here so that like my results change. That's the energy of like the 11th and the 12th. Let me see what else is going on that day. We have on the 12th, the moon in Taurus will challenge, well, then it kind of be like Wednesday into Thursday, depending on where you are in the world. For y'all in the US, it could be like Thursday morning, where the moon in Taurus is challenging this Venus Mars thing we have going on. And then again, the message here, the energy here is going to be transformation. It's going to be, what do you need to let go of? What beliefs, maybe because we're still in Mercury retrograde, do you need to let go of in order to change the result that you're getting? Again, if this comes down to money, it's like, okay, what part of you doesn't believe that you could just manifest money out of thin air? If this is relationships, what part of you doesn't believe that you could like have that dream relationship, or that you could have effortless communication within your relationship or whatever, right? This is again a big theme. Like what's happening externally is showing us what inwardly needs to transform and change, because this is going to be a T-square between fixed signs. Taurus, Aquarius, Leo, then the release is going to be through Scorpio. So what needs to transform, what needs to be released in order to have that transformation. Okay, that's the 11th and the 12th. Then we have a full moon in Gemini on the 15th. This is going to be a big day because the full moon will be squaring Neptune. So y'all remember that full moon? Let me pull up the exact time of it. I remember that full moon back in September, I believe it was, when we had the full moon in Pisces on Neptune. This is going to be a revisitation of that energy. Yeah, it looks like. Oh wait. Okay, so for y'all in the US, I think it will be like super early in the morning on Sunday, like 2 to 4 a.m. But the full moon in Gemini, this is going to be a really interesting one because, and I'll probably do a whole live stream about this because I'm going to be doing a live stream for the new moon in Sagittarius on the 1st, I believe that one is. That's, I think, like even this weekend. But the full moon in Gemini is going to bring up themes from, like I said, mid-September when we had that full moon in Pisces on Neptune. And it's also going to bring up themes of the new moon in Gemini we had, I believe, back in May or June. Which I really need to go through like I wish I had more of my journals here because I like to journal about things and it helps me so much to go back and see like what was going up for me around these full moons and these new moons. And that's really why having those types of practices where you like write your intentions and you like write where you're releasing like every new and full moon can help because it just like brings more of an understanding of like, oh, this is like literally a theme I was working on back with this new moon. And during the full moon, it's like wrapping it up because that's really what these moon phases propel us into. Full moons are about illumination, manifestation, and release, a culmination of an energy that began with the new moon, right? I talk about this in my Manifest with the Moon class. Have you taken it in the membership? But so the full moon in Gemini is going to be squaring Neptune. So again, we might get like sudden clarity or revelations about something that has been coming up for us over the last 6 months or so in this area of your life. And again, the release will be through Virgo. So lots of like, I know it sounds kind of weird because we don't have anything in Virgo, like now or really like for a while. But that's really the big kind of message I'm getting from all of this stuff is like there's going to be conflicts and there's going to be challenges between these different parts of our chart. And the release of it is just to step out of perfectionism and also to have like structures and systems in place that we're able to take care of ourselves through whatever conflicts and challenges come up. Having those like healthy eating habits, having the routine of going for a walk or going to the gym or whatever, having your the inspirational podcast that you listen to in the morning, like all those kind of practices in place to help you better deal with these conflicts or these challenges as they come up, and to just remember that like it's all happening, like there's a divine orchestration to this. It's all happening in divine timing as it needs to and as it should, and it never makes sense in the now but it always makes sense from hindsight, right? So yeah, might even be getting messages through dreams around this time as well. I've been like around right now actually that I'm recording this toward the end of November and around this full moon in Gemini on the 15th. I've been having the weirdest ass dreams because Mercury is kind of squaring Neptune right now. So we're already feeling some of that Neptunian energy. And it'll be heightened around this full moon as well. Okay, we also have Mercury going direct on this day. So again, that's why I was saying like there might be, we had the full moon early in the morning, and then I believe Mercury goes direct like towards like later in the day. I don't know exactly what time. Let me see. Yeah, towards in the US for y'all, it'll be like 4 p.m. when Mercury goes direct. on the 15th. So the full moon's at like 4 a.m. and then 12 hours later you have Mercury going direct. That's New York time at 4 p.m. So that might be just a day of like you wake up and you're like, what the fuck was that dream about? And things might be intense for a few hours, and then later in the day you get like insights or clarity on like, okay, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to share, this is how I want to move forward on this thing, is what I'm feeling for the 15th. So there's going to be some kind of like breakthrough, I feel like, that happens. Then on the 18th, we have the moon in Leo on Mars. And they're both opposite Pluto. So this is why I was saying like a few weeks ago that we're going to be feeling this Mars opposite Pluto energy for a little bit, because Mars is moving so slowly right now up until it goes retrograde, and then it will literally be moving backwards, like amplifying that Mars opposite Pluto energy again. So I feel like the biggest thing from this energy is just to really honor your natural rhythms. Like if all you feel like doing is like laying on the couch watching Gossip Girl that day, like honor your body's natural rhythms if you can. If you have the ability to do that, like honor yourself, or do it when you do have the ability to do it, right? It's like really honoring our natural rhythms and our needed rest periods right now, because we're literally in this huge, like we're in a cocoon, like like an incubator of transformation. And so, like I said, while we're gonna have these short, these maybe brief periods of like, okay, inspiration and I have clarity now, I'm gonna act on it. We're also gonna be in long term, zoomed out, like this period of rest and reflection. So really only act when you like have the true energy too. Does that make sense? Because there's just so much going on behind the scenes, that's changing things. Also on the 18th, moon on Mars. This is going to be a day where we might feel emotionally, just something comes up emotionally. Like communication is going to be good because it's making a harmonious aspect to Mercury and Sagittarius, and after the retrograde period, so it's going to be like, okay, I reflected on this during the retrograde, and this is what I want to say and how I want to say it, and I feel good in doing it. It might come across a little fiery because moon is on Mars. But it's also going to play into that transformation that we're in. And so it might feel like it's this is a really conflicting energy, because it's like we do feel good and we do feel free flowing with like sharing our emotions and communicating them, but we also feel like it's at war with the transformation that in the new beginning that we're headed towards. Okay, so then on the 19th, we have Venus. We have Venus in Aquarius now, which I've already talked about because it moved over Pluto. Wait, I'm going by hour again. Let's go by day. December 19th, we have Venus trine Jupiter. So this could also be a good day for, expansion around finances, expansion around within relationships, within your values, your self-worth. Like I just kind of like these 2 days feel like we're really kind of like feeling ourselves with what we've realized. We want to act on what we want to change, and it's just kind of like we feel more like confident and more secure in what we're doing and how we're moving forward. We'll also have, so Venus will trine Jupiter, but then the moon will be opposite it. And then we'll have the sun squaring Neptune. So this is, it just feels, I don't know how to explain it. It's a really weird energy. It's like we are feeling ourselves, we are feeling good about what we're doing and how we're moving forward, but also there's this energy of like we don't know, or we're questioning if it's right. We're questioning, because the sun is squaring Neptune and Venus is opposite the moon, we're questioning whether or not it's the right thing to do. We're questioning if and I can't help but think of my flight is around this time, so I can't help but think if like I'm not going to want to leave France or something. because of where it is in my chart. It's like I feel like we're gonna feel good about what we're doing, but we're also gonna feel like, is it right? I don't know. Like we might feel a little. It's so conflicting. This energy is weird. Um, yeah, it's like it feels right, but we can't explain why it feels right, and we don't know intellectually that it's right. You know what I mean? Oh man, what a weird way to say all that. So yeah, watch out for these days. The 18th to the 20th could be some interesting, just confusing energy that comes up. Okay. Then the 20th, we have the moon in Virgo squaring Mercury. So again, this could be a like maybe we're just overthinking our decision. Maybe we're overthinking if it's the right thing or not because it's so different from what we have done before, or what old us would have done, or what and I just saw 5555 change. Yeah, it's like we're really in our head about this thing. Like we feel good about it, but we're really in our head about it. And we're just not sure if it's the right thing to do, is what this kind of these days in December feel like. Because it's just so different, it's so unique. I mean, with Venus and Aquarius, it's like, and again, we have to tie into the South Node, themes of the South Node being in Libra, and really watch out for Venus's transits as well as Mars. So it's interesting that these two planets will be opposite each other because they are tied so closely to where the nodes are right now. Um, we're releasing some outdated version of our values, our self-worth, our the types of relationships we have around us, or um, the way that we're making money, or our relationship with money. These are all Venus themes, and we're really releasing those kind of old behaviors and patterns that we've had in those things over the past year and a half. And the end of this year, it's all coming to a culmination because the nodes are about to move out of Aries and Libra, and they're going to move into Pisces and Virgo. So it's going to shift our focus. And so we're really wrapping up this cycle that we've been in. We're really wrapping up this chapter. Um, and it feels foreign. It feels uncertain because again, like we've never kind of been in it before. When how do I describe this? Like, there's so many analogies I could use, but I'll apply it to me learning French. So, like, when I started learning French, I was like, this is the weirdest language in the world. Like, y'all just make like sounds. Like, it just sounds like you're making noises with your mouth and your throat. Like, it's so strange to me. And I, like, literally could not understand people that had a French accent and were speaking English. I was like, there's no way they're not speaking English. Like, that's still French. I can't hear anything they're saying. It was so weird and so foreign, right? But then the more I was exposed to it, the more I got used to hearing that. Now I'm like, now I'm like, oh, it just sounds normal. Like it just, you know what I mean? Like, so when we're new to something, it's like the weirdest thing in the world because we're not used to it and it's uncomfortable. But then we do get used to it because we stick with it, we keep going, and then it becomes the new normal. But that's what the end of the year feels like. It's like, oh, this is foreign territory. Like, I don't know if this feels right. I don't know. I've never, been in this energy before. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but yeah, it's weird energy to talk about. That's right before Christmas. We celebrate Christmas. Then on December 23rd, actually, I think on the 21st, we have, yeah, Sun moving into Capricorn. Capricorn season begins. We'll have a little bit more grounding energy than we've had with Sag season. What else do we have going on? Oh, the next big day is the 23rd. And we have the Sun in Capricorn squaring the North and South node. So again, this is going to be a revisitation of what I just talked about, really closing up this chapter of what has been happening in our life and these areas where Aries and Libra rule for the past year and a half. So for me, this has been like a total revamp of my appearance, the sense of self that has come with me dressing a certain way and presenting myself in a certain way. and the people I've attracted, the relationships I've attracted because of that, as a result of that. First and seventh houses, right? So think of how that's been showing up for you, what's been coming up for you. This is going to be a really like, okay, we're closing out that chapter, and we're moving forward on what changes we have made. Then next big day is the 26th. We have Mercury opposite Jupiter again for the third time. So this will be a revisitation and really a final kind of, again, lots of just completion and closure happening at the end of the month, which is very, very apt for being the end of the calendar year. I don't think I could pick better energy to have at the end of the calendar year for like wrapping up a year and reflecting on 2024 and what we want to take from it versus what we don't want to take from it and what we want to change. This is like perfect end of year, New Year's resolution energy. As Mercury is opposite Jupiter for the third time, we're really integrating those things that were brought up for us with that transit, and it's squaring Saturn again. It's like again a final closing out of that energy. Mars will be opposite Pluto, more exact. What else do we have on the 26th? Okay, that's it on the 26th. And then on the 27th, we have Venus challenging Uranus. That will be the 27th and the 28th. The moon joins it as well because it will be opposite Uranus. So the moon will be in Scorpio, opposite Uranus, both squaring Venus. This is why I was saying at the very beginning that something economically could happen. Some news comes to light, like, oh yeah, we lied to you guys for the last year and a half. Like, sorry, we're actually in a really bad recession, and yeah, there's a lot of inflation. Like, we're gonna be honest about it now, kind of thing. Or maybe something is done about it because people are just fed up with it, kind of thing. Something's gonna happen as it relates to the U.S. economy specifically. And I think it will be a positive change. It could be something too to do with I don't know, cryptocurrency. I know the US has been like trying to roll out their own for a while. It could be something to do with that as well. Okay, what else? We have, oh yeah, already talked about that. The T-square between Jupiter, Mercury, and Saturn on the 27th. And then on the 28th, the moon joins that T-square with Mercury, Saturn, and Jupiter. So this will just bring an emotional lens to whatever themes were really potent for you during the Mercury retrograde and how that conflicted maybe with where Jupiter is currently in your chart in Gemini, as well as where Saturn has been in your chart. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say about that. I've talked a lot about the Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn thing. So this will be a third and final phase of that energy, really wrapping it up for good on the 28th. Then on the 30th, we have a new moon in Cap. New moon in Capricorn. Mars is getting very, very close to being opposite Pluto again. And that will, I think there's gonna be a lot of healing that happens as well around these days. Because on the 31st of December, Mercury will be in a harmonious aspect with Chiron. And then the moon in Capricorn will be in a challenging aspect with Chiron. So there could be some emotional release around, again, like what the themes of the Mercury retrograde were for us or what came up during the Mercury retrograde. And there's some kind of emotional healing that happens or release after some type of conflict or challenge. Then on the 1st, on New Year's Day, we have the moon on Pluto, and it will be opposite Mars. This isn't the exact day that Mars peaks opposite Pluto, but it's pretty dang close. And because the moon is there on Pluto opposite Mars, could be a very emotionally charged day. It's a very interesting New Year's Day. Like the first time I saw this, I was like, oof. I mean, Good thing most things are closed on New Year's Day because this is kind of crazy energy. It's very emotionally charged energy. And that's really what I see for the first. And then let me just give you all the date for when Mars will be exactly opposite Pluto again. Okay, so the 2nd and the 3rd. So not soon, not far after the 1st of 2025, which so crazy to say out loud, 2025. And then that is the same day, the 2nd of January, that Mercury leaves post shadow. So again, really big themes around moving forward, moving in a new direction. What did you wrap up at the end of December? And how are you just embarking on something new because of that, because of everything that came up? So yeah, and then the Mars, let me bring up that thing again so I can share with you all the exact dates of the Mars retrograde. Mars will be retrograde until February 23rd. And then it will move back into Cancer. Why doesn't it give me a date for that? Oh wait, it does. Hold on. Mars will move back into Cancer on... No, it doesn't give me a date. On December 6th, Mars stations and turns retrograde at 6 degrees Leo. Yep, and then it goes direct on February 23rd. But when will it move back into Cancer? I think right after the new year because we have it at 1 degrees. Yeah. Mars will move back into Cancer on like January 6th. So then that will kind of, depending on which house system you use, could change the energy of how the Mars retrograde is showing up for you. So yeah, and then like I said, it'll be retrograde until the February 23rd. It will leave post shadow on May 2nd. So Mars is going to be in Cancer for a long time. Big themes around that transit. So yeah, that's what I have for y'all as it relates to the Mercury and Mars retrogrades. What questions do you have, if any? Are you already feeling the Mercury retrograde, Mars retrograde? I've been feeling both, but the Mars one feels more slow for me and it's more subtle. Like I was saying, it's more so like zoomed out energy, but the Mercury one I've kind of already been feeling like on a day-to-day basis. People tell me that Paris, like the trains breaking down or whatever, not working in Paris happens all the time, but I've been here for 2 months and the first time I experienced it was like 2 days ago. I was like, oh, this is a sign of Mercury retrograde. Because I've been here for 2 months and haven't experienced a single train not working until like Mercury's about to go retrograde. So I don't know. I don't feel like maybe y'all, maybe it just always happens during Mercury retrograde and nobody realizes. Because I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it happen yet. But yeah, I'm excited. I know, like I was saying, gonna be launching a lot of new things I'm working on as a little sneak peek. I've shared this to my Instagram subscribers. Oh my God, I don't think I've shared it in the membership though. I will make a post about it after this. But I'm working on an astrology report, like how I have my human design report that y'all can get from my website. That's like a personalized interpretation sent to you. I'm working on an astrology one as well. And that's been in the works for, it literally almost has been 6 months. So it's kind of funny that I was like saying all of these things of like, yeah, what have you been working on the past 6 months? And it's literally, it's happening for me too, y'all. I'm not, what was it? How do I say that? Oh my God, how do I words? I'm not exempt from these things taking place in my own life as well. But knowing about them just helps me understand instead of I used to be really hard on myself. I'm like, Kelsey, you should finish this already. You should have this all together. You should blah, 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 blah. You should have been working on this the past 6 months. No, it's fine. It's literally all divine. So it's helped me reframe my own self-talk of like, okay, this is just a part of the divine timing of all of this. This is not me at all. Okay, well, if nobody has any questions, I'm gonna end it here, and then yeah, the replay will be posted. And yeah, I hope you're feeling better, May. Starting to feel better. It's been a rough sickness for sure. The next podcast live stream will be on. I just closed out the. Let me see. It's posted in the membership, so you can RSVP and you'll get an email, so you don't miss it. It will be on December 1st, so this upcoming Sunday, like 1 p.m. Eastern time. Is it like 10 a.m. Pacific? So yeah. I will see you all on the next one. I love you so much. Thanks for being here. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Bye.